Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por acompañarnos en este nuevo stream de la comunidad. Es un gusto tenerlos aquí. Hoy tenemos el honor de conversar con Jason Dunn, una de las figuras claves detrás del programa de AWS Community Day. Estamos contentos de tenerlos con nosotros para poder compartir sus experiencias, su visión del crecimiento de la comunidad y algunos aprendizajes que seguro inspiran a todos. Preparemos nuestras preguntas que tendremos para podérselas realizar a Jason. También quiero contarles rápidamente que el 5 de septiembre tenemos el AWS Community Day en Cuenca, un evento ya confirmado donde habrán charlas muy interesantes sobre inteligencia artificial y lo más relevante que está pasando en el mundo de tecnología y AWS. Por ahí también seguro van a ver una de mis charlas donde estaré hablando sobre observabilidad y IA, así que no se lo pierdan. También agradecer especialmente a Alexis, el líder de AWS User Group Ecuador, por hacer posible no solamente estas charlas, los eventos y poder tener conversaciones con grandes figuras del mundo tech. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another stream from AWS Community Day. It's great to have you all here. Today we have the pleasure of having Jason Dunn with us. Jason is one of the key people behind AWS community programs and playing an important roles building and growing the community around the world. So today we are going to have a great conversation about his experience, the lessons he learns along the way, and of course, what the future of tech community looks like in the age of AI. Jason, we are really glad to have you here. Welcome and thank you for joining us. How are you today?
Hola, I am good. I am very happy to be here. It's an honor to be part of this event and to talk to members of your user group. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's great to have you here. I would like to start with a simple questions, but important question for us. When someone asks you what you build at AWS, do you describe it as a program, a community, or something else?
Yeah, that is a really interesting question. A community really is when one or more people get together and do something, something that they have in common, right? So you could call a community of people, that meet for a drink at a local pub or something once a week. That's a community. But a program would be something that gives it structure and processes and sort of ways that things work. So developers are already in communities together with each other in lots of different ways. But a community program is really combining those two things together, right? Finding people that want to be in community together around that particular topic. And then the program piece is actually creating the structure, the process, the guidelines, what it actually is. And that, includes naming and branding and swag and benefits and all these are the things that kind of go together with the community program. So a program without community is really just like marketing. It's like a marketing motion, but once you layer in community and you put them together, you have a community program.
Yeah, it's for me, for example, the community is great in this aspect because how you mentioned is a combination of the peoples or how you share your content, how you develop a network in this aspect. So let us go back to the beginning. What is the problem was AWS original trying to solve when the community builder programs was created? What is the objective clear at the beginning?
So back in 2019, before I joined, one of the things that would happen back then, the AWS community team had essentially two community programs. They had the Heroes program, which, as you know, is a nomination-only program. It's not a program you can apply to. You have to kind of be out doing big things in the AWS community, and then you're essentially nominated and invited to join the program. And then there was the user group program, which, anyone can start a user group and people can join a user group. What would happen is people would come up to AWS employees at, reInvent or at summits and say, hey, like I really want to engage with an AWS community, but maybe I don't live someplace where there's a user group, and maybe I'm not the person that wants to start a user group. How can I engage with the community? And so at the end of 2019, my old manager, Ross Barrich, who wrote a doc, and everything at Amazon is done with a doc, right? So if you want to make change, if you want to get approval, budget, headcount, you write a doc. And so Ross wrote this doc, and it basically said, we need something that's kind of in the middle. Like, it's not a user group, it's not the Heroes program. We need something in the middle that is going to scale to, thousands of people. It'll be available virtually to anyone around the world, and it essentially solves that sort of missing middle problem that AWS had with their community programs. And Ross wrote the doc got approved, and then I started in March of 2020. So it was just a few months after the doc was written, I joined the community, and that was what we were trying to solve, that kind of missing middle problem with the community programs.
Awesome. I know that at the beginning of the process, you start with tools like Slack, emails. Could you tell a little more about that?
Yeah. So the program was launched very quickly. I joined in March of 2020, like I said, and the first beta of the program was launched in early June. So it was just a couple of months. And I didn't have any tools. We didn't have any sort of platforms. Back then, the heroes and the community, the user group leaders were on Slack. And so that was just sort of a natural, like, hey, spin up a free Slack workspace, create a shared inbox, for email. And that was it. That was the entirety of the kind of tooling stack that I was using. And it wasn't until late, we eventually upgraded to like a paid Slack workspace so people could access, past messages and things like that. But ultimately, even to this day, eventually all the community programs migrated over to an enterprise Slack workspace. And so it's a little nice, it's fancier and everything, but ultimately it's still Slack and email, but the way that community connects together is in Slack. And then Builder Center, the website where there's a little more kind of public interaction, but fundamentally it's a private community in Slack. That's where community happens.
Awesome. That's what the great tools. At the end of the moment is one of the tools more used in some places. So that is interesting. What is the most interesting part of building a community when you chose the first group of members? How did you select the first member, and why are the founding members so important in shaping a community's culture?
Yeah, it's a great question. So interestingly, the first members that were invited, it was almost a little bit more like how heroes are selected, AWS heroes, because the service teams that we were working with. So broadly, when we first started in 2020, I believe we had 10 or 11 categories. And these were categories like serverless, data, network and content delivery. Each one of these service categories mapped back to a service team. So the actual employees at AWS that are building the services. And those people essentially had the task of going out on social media and other places in the community and finding the people that they thought were sort of great champions for AWS services, advocates, like, who are the people that are talking about Lambda a lot and using Lambda? Well, those are the people that the serverless service team would then want to, pull into this community. So the first group of people, which was, it was right around 200 people, they were actually all nominated. So they did not apply. They were essentially invited to join. We sent them an email. We sort of brought them in. And when we invited them into Slack, that the first engagement, right, when someone joins Slack and they have no idea what this thing is, that very first engagement is really important because it sets the tone for what the community will be. And so that's why, when you're creating a program, you have to have structure, and you really need to know, like, who is this community for and what are we going to be doing there? And then most importantly, why would someone come back a second time? It's a really important thing with the community. You can get anyone to probably jump into something once, but unless they're really impressed and they go, oh, I see a lot of value here, they might never come back again. And so when someone joins for the first time, that's when you set the tone. And those first people that were invited to join, they were people that were, you know, content creators. They were people that were really excited to learn new things about AWS and then share it with other people. And ultimately, that's the crux of what the Community Builders program is about. You know, people that enjoy learning, exploring, and then sharing with other people. So getting the right people in sets the stage for everything that happens after.
Okay, that this is like the base to building or growth in this aspect, a community. So AWS community grow from a relatively small group into a global community with thousands of members across more than 1,000 country. What changed when your community grow from a few hundred people to several thousands? What changed?
Yeah, so that is definitely one of the challenges when you're building a community is how do you scale, but how do you scale in such a way that the heart of the community remains the same, the purpose of the community remains the same. You can scale a community of hundreds to thousands, and I believe as long as you're really intentional, you can maintain the heart of that community. But the Community Builders program was never intended to be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Ultimately, that is when things get to be so big, the nature of the community would change. So I think a couple things that we did as a team, as the community got bigger, we would spin up channels that were more specific for folks in different regions. So for example, when we first launched, you know, it's an English language community primarily, because that's the only language that I speak. But as the community grew and we got more and more people from different countries, there started to be, like, I started to see sort of conversations in other languages popping up here and there. Because, you know, people that are not fluent in English, they might be more willing to share and chat in their primary language. So we created a bunch of language channels, you know, so these were essentially based around language, so people could jump in. And then some of the channels, specifically the Japanese channel in particular, was extremely active because a lot of the folks from Japan in the Community Builders program were much more comfortable, you know, writing in Japanese versus in English. And then late last year, we did a bit of a beta that was actually around regions. And so we got some feedback that folks, because ultimately language is a bit limiting, right? Because obviously Spanish is spoken in a huge number of countries, but someone who is in, you know, Ecuador and wants to talk about events in Ecuador, that's not going to be relevant to someone like in Mexico, for example, you know, because it's going to be different. So then we started going down the path of doing regional channels that are actually based around, you know, specific regions. The first one we launched was in EMEA, you know, so in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and we created some channels there. So ultimately, a community and the way you engage with folks at scale is always evolving and it's always changing. And the key thing is really just to be responsive to member needs and look for opportunities to serve them better. And so the language channels and the regional channels were a way that we sort of evolved to serve our members better.
Awesome. Yeah. The audience is so important. For example, for me, in the channel of the Slack, the AWS community, we have different channel for Spanish, for English. You know, you feel more comfortable with it, so more close to you. I think that is really really important. Another challenge is balancing inclusions with the quality and the purpose. How do you create an inclusive community while maintain its standard identity and purpose?
Yeah, so that is always a challenge because you want to grow, you want to scale, but you want to maintain, you know, the quality of the community. The truth is, you want to set up guidelines and you want to set up essentially clear instructions to people looking from the outside in that these are the types of people that we are looking for this community. Early on, one of the decisions that I made was Was this going to be a community that was open to everyone? Could anyone join? Or was it a community that would be like a private, a VIP experience? And the goals of the program aligned much more with being a private, VIP experience. But even early on, there was conversations, with my manager and our team about whether or not the Community Builders program would be like a one-year program that people would join and then sort of, graduate from and essentially leave the program, or would they stay in the program? And there were, there were arguments for both sides, but ultimately I decided that if you build a successful community and people enjoy being there and they enjoy coming back, asking them to sort of leave and say bye-bye, like you're done with this community, that would be like a very negative experience, right? And so ultimately we decided to make it something that people could renew and they could come back to. But every year, the application, the things that people filled out to join the community, that always changed, because what we were always trying to do was sort of dial in the type of people that we were looking for and shape the application. So it's like anything else, when you're taking in data, you have to have the right kind of filters to get the kind of data you want. And it was very similar with the community members, so we would have folks that might apply who maybe were students that were just starting their cloud journey and had never really used AWS or had never created or shared anything. Those are the type of people that we would want to join, like a student group or like a user group. And like that's a great place to start your journey. But the Community Builders program wouldn't be appropriate for somebody like that. So then on the intake, we would, ask for links to their content. And then if someone didn't have links, that was a signal that this program wasn't a good fit for them. So a lot of it has to do just with the shaping the intake of the community members, so that at the end, when we're evaluating people, the people we're picking from are ideally the right kind of people. And then it's a matter of just finding the best ones, essentially, of everyone who applied.
Okay, I got it. So in this aspect, for example, I am a AWS Community Builder for the serverless category, but one of the, yes, one of the things that motivate for me is share contents, try to participate in different speak and create contents around the experience, what I do. So in this sense, one of my following questions is how you deal with the AI in this aspect about the creating contents, the original contents. How do you think?
So without a doubt, that is the single biggest challenge and I think problem with a community program that is built around content is AI generated content. So a couple of years ago, it was really easy to spot the AI generated content. It was like really obvious and it was very rudimentary and there's all these tells. In my opinion, today, it's virtually impossible. There's really no way to tell the difference between AI and human generated content. Some people talk about the EM dashes, those long dashes in the text, but I don't think that's a good way to do it because I use EM dashes in my day-to-day writing. So I'm not an AI. So that doesn't really work. So I think what you probably get down to is someone using AI to create content completely from scratch and they have no input into it. They're just essentially saying, hey, I need 1,000 words on, cold starts in Lambda, something like that, some serverless topic, right? And then the AI spits out the 1,000 words and they copy and paste it into their Medium account or their dev account. Those are the things that like hold very little value. And if we see something like that, when, and I say we, I'm not with AWS anymore, but when I was and we were evaluating applications, we would look for that. Part of what we would look for would also be whether or not the content had like a personal angle, because AI can generate highly, high quality technical content, but it's not going to have a personal angle and it's not going to have anything about you as the author. So one of the differentiators I think would be, does this AI, does this content, does it seem to come from a place where the author's relating a story to the user? Hey, this one time I deployed this service at this business and then our servers crashed and here's what happened. AI isn't going to do that unless the person feeds it into the AI, I think the tricky part about AI-based content is there's a gradient, right? At the one end, it's completely AI-based content that the user has had no input into other than just a short prompt. But then on the other end, you could have someone who writes out an article themselves, but then they use AI to essentially clean up their grammar, or fix spelling mistakes. And so there's this gradient of how AI tools can, help authors create better content. But ultimately, in terms of, detecting it and figuring out who's using AI to write their content and who isn't, it is an almost unsolvable problem at this point. And I think then you have to rely a little bit more on the integrity of the person joining. Are they joining for the right reason? But, are you going to be able to figure out whether their content is AI or not? No, you probably won't.
Yeah. For example, I currently in my the papers where I try to write is more to make a structure. I speak a little more about my experience and then try to transmit in a papers, or try to summarize something specific things. But that's one of the caught my attention. What is your tools AI that you usually use in your daily basis?
Yeah, so I think like most people, you try different tools and you change them over time, So I think at the beginning, I dabbled a little bit with ChatGPT, and then I was using Copilot for a little bit, and then I got because I give Google a lot of money for Google Drive, I got the Gemini AI free. So I was actually using Gemini, and then a few months back I decided to start paying for Claude, and Anthropic. So right now it's mostly Gemini and Claude. Now, I'm not a developer, but I have been dabbling. Actually, I'd say more than dabbling. I've been vibe coding apps and actually building things using Google anti-gravity, because anti-gravity seemed to be this thing that they seem to be like a good place to start. And so I actually built some stuff. And just yesterday, I was vibe coding a new version of a Mac OS desktop app that I actually built to help me with some photography stuff. So yeah, it's really interesting. Things are always changing. If I'm using, Microsoft Office, you're using Microsoft AI and Excel. So there's all these different LLMs and AI tools that are floating around out there. But I think the most challenging thing is, especially, if you're a developer, trying to keep up to just the sheer number of tools and startups and services that they're building with AI is almost just bewildering. Like, I find it so confusing. I get, the Product Hunt emails every day, and Product Hunt, has like the 10 launches, and my goodness, I'm just, it's so hard to keep up on it. So I think a lot of folks are having, kind of AI overload, just trying to figure out like, what are the right tools for me to be using. But it does mean that there's a lot of opportunity to learn, so people that are further in on their journey can help other people to say, hey, these are the tools I'm using. Here's how I'm using it. And then of course, lots of companies are doing great training. I did a Claude 101, like an Anthropic training that was about 3 hours of training, and it helped me understand Anthropic's tools a little better. So lots of opportunities to learn.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, this is one of the AI part that would like to talk to you. So before to go to the AI sections, just let me that I would like that you can make recommendations in the context or our local context, basically, for the AWS community Ecuador. What is your recommendations for or make more impact? Before everything is that I think that particularly we have a strong community, lead for Alexis from Ecuador. So, but in this aspect, what do you think is the recommendation for make a great impact in our local context?
Sure. So I think one of the side effects of having AI make it so easy for people to create content, it in some ways it lowers the value of online written content, because there's just so much of it now, right? And it's so hard to find, people that are creating genuine content. Now, I think it creates a great opportunity for people that are creating content and that this person actually wrote it. I think a great opportunity for all communities in general, though, is actually leaning into in-person engagements and in-person events. So like the community day that you're doing, going to a user group meetup. The people that show up to a meetup and give a presentation and share what they've learned, I think those types of things are actually going to become incredibly more valuable and more popular, because people, I think humans crave connection with each other, and we crave, learning from each other. Like, so if you're just starting out, you can go to Google and find 1,000 articles, most of them written by AI, about a particular topic. But if you can go to an event and talk to someone and get, career advice and understanding of how to use this particular technology, that is really valuable. So I think the greatest opportunity is for people to lean into in-person events, or even like live events like this, right? Joining a live event and asking questions and engaging with someone. There's a lot of value there. And so I think that's the best opportunity for communities to grow.
Yeah, I think that the community day in general, at least in Ecuador, is one of the great moment to make connections with the people. You can understand a little thing, you can get more knowledge, make great people around you. And yeah, I think that one of the moments where you can share a lot about you, and the people can meet you in this aspect. Well, so I'm going to back to the AI. So one of the questions that I would like to ask you, let me see the comment if someone can make some questions.
Yeah, if people in the audience have questions, by all means, let's ask those as well.
Yeah, want to pick up one of the questions before of just give you this question about what do you think about the area for developers? Do you think that everything has changed? What is your perspective for the people that want to know more about it?
I don't know that I understand the question. Can you restate it?
Yeah, sorry. What do you think about the new area of developers in this work with different tools about AI? Do you think that everything will change the way the people coding or everything could become in a reviewers? Do you think that developers' life could be stay for a long time, or everything has changed in this way?
Well, first off, I'm definitely not the right person to answer big questions like that, because I'm not a developer myself. So I guess all I can really share are just my observations as someone who's trying to read about how AI is changing, society. It kind of depends where you are, I think, on the spectrum, right? There's some people that are like, AI is overhyped and it's a bubble that's, going to burst. And there's other people that are like, AI is going to change everything, and soon we won't even have jobs. We'll just be orchestrating swarms of agents. So there's a spectrum, right, of what people believe about AI. I mean, it's undoubtedly true that AI is dramatically changing the life of a developer and how they operate, right? Both from the expectation of, I think in a workplace, I think everybody, you used to have the 1X developer and the 10X developer, and the 10X developer was the 10X developer because of their amazing skills. And I think now there's this almost expectation that, well, can't we all use AI, and can't we all be 10X or 100X or 1,000X? You see all these crazy things. So I think as a developer, all that has changed. And then the other interesting thing that I think is layered in here, right, is that people who were not previously developers, like myself, I can't code anything. All of a sudden, we have the ability to use these tools to actually create things. So you have people creating websites and apps and even entire companies
by coding,
and they're not developers, and they don't. But here's the funny part, right? Of course, when something breaks, you're like, well, I don't know why it broke because I'm not a developer. And so in some weird way, we're just sort of like monkeys banging on a keyboard, and then something happens and we get excited. But then if something breaks, it's only the developers that actually understand the technology that can really understand it and kind of fix it. So the truth is, we are in an era, I think, of unprecedented change. I don't believe that AI, I don't believe we're going to have artificial general intelligence next year. Like, I don't think we're there. But what I'm very convinced of is that AI is the most monumental change perhaps since the invention of the internet. Like, I think it is a dramatic change in how we work and how we operate and how we communicate. And in the business world, especially, you know, as someone who wants to have a job and you want to support your family, things are changing a lot. And the truth is, I don't know where we're going to be a year from now. You know, we've heard about these companies, right, that have used AI and they've burned through their entire token allocation and their budget. And all of a sudden they're hiring back humans because humans are cheaper than AI. So it's a very, like, the pace of change is so fast. I think anyone that claims to predict the future and know where all this is going is not being honest. I think the truth is there's so much change. All we can really do is hang on and hope for the best, but also I think learn. That's a really key thing, right? It can be scary and intimidating, but the opportunity is for people to learn how to use the tools and not be sort of swept away. Because I think the people that deny that AI is going to change anything, I think those people are at risk of being left behind in the workplace and even in life to a certain degree.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree that everything has changed so fast. For example, Skiro is one of the tools that AWS launched for 1 year ago, I think. So it's a great tool for developers. However, I think that a lot of people can make by coding and maybe make an MVP for something idea and try to deliver it for the public. Is that a fact that when something has grown, developers need to try to resolve in this aspect? Let me see the comments. If I can pick up one of the questions that from the audience, for the audience. So, sure. Well, this question is a little interesting. Hi from Bolivia. What do you think of another community beside AWS? Is there anything to learn from them?
So, I think there's something to learn from any community anywhere, as long as that community has people in it that are willing to share. So I think that someone who wants to be well-rounded in their understanding, like if you're a developer, right, you want to be well-rounded in your understanding of technology, you should seek out knowledge wherever you can. And so if there is a local user group, you know, for, you know, Python or, you know, PHP or whatever it might be, like a different language, or, you know, a Microsoft Azure user group, I think in, coming to events like that and engaging with other people is always a great opportunity. And even if you don't get a lot out of it technically, as we know, networking with other people and building relationships, you never know when that is going to benefit you. When I was at the Australia Community Day in Brisbane last year, I heard this great story that somebody went to that event. So I spoke at that event. It was wonderful. They went to that event, and within about, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, they had met some people. They actually ended up getting a job offer from coming to that event. Now, not every time you go to an event, you're going to get a job offer, but the idea is networking with other people, building relationships with other people is never a bad thing. So I would say lean into any opportunity you get to engage with other communities, regardless of platform or technology.
Yeah. I totally agree. In the job, in the professional career, I think that is one of the moments where you can show what do you do, or show about your interest. You know. Let me pick up some questions. Yeah, here's other questions. Jason's, what is the opinion on companies making business decisions with AI, knowing that its answers are based on probabilities?
Well, this is probably almost a whole TED Talk unto itself, and I am certainly not qualified to, I think, speak to, you know, how a CEO makes decisions. We've all read the stories, right, about how some leaders at companies are essentially offloading their decision-making to LLMs, you know, and AIs are making decisions, you know, business decisions based, like you said, on probabilities. And I mean, I think it really depends on where you are on the spectrum. You know, do you believe that these tools are just, you know, probabilistic it's like a stochastic parrot is something I've heard. It's just like, it's this thing that just speaks back to you, or do you believe that there are actually, they can come up with creative, interesting solutions? I believe that AI is at its best when it is enhancing human decision-making by giving you maybe some concepts to explore, by challenging what your ideas are. AI can be really good at making you explain yourself. But I do believe that any business decision maker that is essentially going into their AI tool and saying, should we hire 1,000 people or should we fire 1,000 people? That leader is just doomed, and that company is probably doomed. And it's really only a matter of time. So I don't believe that AI should replace human decision-making. I think it should enhance it. But I very, very firmly believe that humans should always, remain in control of the decision-making, because ultimately, yeah, these are probabilistic tools, based, on vectors and, all this data. They're not actually intelligent. And that is infinitely obvious. Yeah, I was using an AI tool yesterday. I was asking it a question about an Android feature. I was like, I'm running Android 17. Wasn't there this thing? And, some sort of speech to text. And the tool said, yes, it's this new tool called, Rambler. And then when I couldn't find it based on its instructions, it came back and said, I'm really sorry. I completely made that up. I fabricated that. And then I did more research myself on the web, and it was right. There was this tool called Rambler. So I went back to the AI and said, why did you say you made it up when you didn't make it up? And it's like, oh, I'm really sorry. So I think we're all used to like our AI tools apologizing to us all the time now, because they're constantly making mistakes. So I think over-reliance on AI tools and giving your critical thinking skills over to an AI tool is a terrible mistake for anyone, whether you're a regular person in your day-to-day life or you're a business leader, leading a Fortune 500 company. You have to remain in control, and you have to be the one making the decisions. But I think AI can help you make better decisions. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Awesome. I would like to watch that TikTok. So I totally agree with that comment, Jason, because it's one of the things that probably I have heard about a lot of people's. For example, in my organizations, we don't allow to the AI to make decisions in production or something like that. Basically, because for us, it's more a tool for engineer for the business roles. It's more that a tool that allow you to amplify or make the things more quickly in this aspect. So, but great questions and get great answers, Jason. So, before we close, I would like to ask you a final questions about what do you think, or what do you want to mention for the people from Ecuador, for the community? I would like to hear in this aspect.
Sure. So, like I said earlier, community and being together with other humans, learning from other people, will remain an incredibly important skill and an incredibly important opportunity. So I think it's more important than ever for people to be willing to share what they know with other people. That even if you think to yourself, well, there's no point in me writing this article or making this video or speaking at this event, because people can, just ask their AI and they're going to get the answer. So I think that, what's profoundly changed is, we even saw this with, oh gosh, I am blanking now on the name, the website, Stack Overflow, right? Stack Overflow. So it used to be that when you're a developer, you're going to, you're like looking for a code snippet or how something, you're going to Stack Overflow and you're getting answers from other people, other developers. And that's how people, especially earlier in their career, would figure out how things worked. Well, Stack Overflow, their last thing I saw, their traffic has essentially completely collapsed, and they're essentially just like a data source for LLMs now. So AI has replaced that, let's call it like that kind of lower level Q&A, how do I work, give me a code snippet kind of solution. But what AI has not replaced, at least I don't think it should replace, is the human-to-human interaction that you get going to events and speaking. And so I would just encourage everyone that no matter where they are in their career and their journey, to understand that they can add value to the knowledge journey that another person has, and learning from other people is, I think, going to still remain incredibly, incredibly important. And that's why things like community days and user groups and meetups and joining the Community Builders program and other opportunities with other, companies are all really, really important. So AI might be everywhere, but connecting with each other is still a uniquely human thing to do. And I don't think anyone should shy away from that. I think we should all lean into that even more.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us and share your experience. It has been a pleasure to have you with us. And everything listening, thank you for joining us this streaming. We'll see you in the next time. I hope that everything is going well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining.